I've screenshotted my contact sheet. So I took, I believe, 81 photographs in total, predominantly focusing on the aloe vera plant. So the yellow and the red, more of the yellow because I just find that more of an interesting composition. However, I really love the gradient, the transition of the colour of the red aloe vera plant, so I've included that as well. I haven't deleted anything at all. As you can see, the very first photograph is very much underexposed, but I've added it in. We'll see some examples of it being overexposed. That's okay. We'll see examples of me seeing that. I can just find it. I'll have to probably show that in the film strip. I believe it is maybe here. No, I'm not going to. Oh, here we go. Where it was overexposed, and I adjusted my settings to give it the correct exposure. So that is also going to get you higher marks as well. So I'm now going to move. I'm now going to go and select my photographs from this contact sheet and then put them into Photoshop. So here we are in Photoshop. I've shot on RAW. Oh, this was another thing that I must do a video on. Shooting on RAW and shooting JPEG. Big difference between the two, but just in a nutshell, you'll have better quality photographs, greater file size with RAW files. However, the quality and the resolution will be a lot stronger. Again, thinking about those extra marks, 1 or 2 marks here and there, ladies and gentlemen, will make a big difference and can be the difference between, you know, those A stars, those 9s, those 8s, those 7s. So this is key information because these little points here and there add up. So I've selected from my contact sheet. So let's just go to the beginning. And this is great actually because this is all I want to do. I've done a majority of the work when I am taking the photographs part. That wasn't a very good sentence, was it? However, so what I've done now is made my selections. I brought them into Photoshop. I'm on the raw camera filters editing part. I don't want to do too much editing, very subtle. I just want to quickly talk about my selection. So because maybe when you go to deciding upon what to select and why, it's very important you justify your reasons. And I just want to talk to you about why I've chosen these photographs in particular so that actually you will understand my reasoning and you have to justify why. So why did I choose this one, for instance? I chose it because I really like the composition. I deliberately didn't want space at the top and the bottom. I really like the depth of field. I like how there's that slight out of focus aloe vera plant behind, but again, it's not distracting too much from the focal point. What could I do to make this better? Play around with the exposure a little. So I just want to add a little bit more contrast there. Maybe want to bring up the vibrance slightly. This is all about taste. However, there's taste to a point where it works and there's taste to a point where it doesn't. So let me just show you one bad example here, or a not so good example. This is okay, I believe. This is maybe beginning to take it into something that's slightly unnatural. Now, if you deliberately want to capture that unnatural look, that's fine, as long as you justify it. For me, I think this is a little too saturated. I would be more satisfied with something like this. I like the contrast that's now beginning to emerge between the background. Is it distracting the viewer from the foreground to the subject? Perhaps. So these are things that you have to consider. We can play around with the whites here if we wish. Can you see that difference? They're very subtle differences, but actually I prefer my post-production to be subtle because I want to spend more time focusing on the technical side. I don't want to have to play around with the exposure too much. I did in this photograph because I'm quite, I really do like the composition. I haven't had to crop it. So for me, I'm willing to make that sacrifice. I haven't cropped it. However, I'm happy enough to play around the exposure. So it's one example here. This is nothing to do with the aloe vera plant. However, it was, I believe, a prickly pear within that sort of cacti succulent garden that I photographed in the university campus. I really like this. So what this is, I've taken a photograph of this, and you can write this in your annotation or even annotate on the photo shoot. I saw this, I liked it. I'll probably do another photo shoot on this. So it's just a reminder for you. I really love the natural pattern that's occurring here. So you can make notes like this. I really love this close-up that I took. Again, zooming in with the lens. Haven't cropped anything here. I think I need to add a little bit of contrast here. So again, that subtle change, maybe a bit of vibrance there. And then let's go to some highlighting those shadows slightly. So these are really small adjustments that you can make, very subtle. Again, think about over and under exposures here, and it can be deliberate. For example, I quite like that slightly underexposed touch in this because it helps bring out the webs that are beginning to occur. I like the out of focus background because it's drawing more of a focal point. Focus probably could have been a little better here, but I just wanted to draw you to the attention of it being under and overexposed. In this case, underexposed. Not particularly happy with this. So again, these are adjustments that you can make. Slightly more satisfied with this, but again, not happy with the focus here. Slightly better here because I'm focusing on a specific area that I want to be in focus. So this is the beauty of the macro lens and its advantage. I really love shots where there's only, you know, we're talking about depth of field here, but there's only a point, and this is again the beauty of the macro lens, where there's just one area in focus and everything else becomes out of focus, and it almost becomes a painting, if you like. So again, this is why I chose this. Perhaps I need to think about cropping this one slightly. Let's just see. Do I or do I not? Just perhaps drawing away. Yeah, see, I've just taken out a slight edge from here just to pull everything in a little more. Again, thinking about those natural shadows occurring and those subtle highlights to bring out certain areas within your piece. So again, maybe just play around with the contrast slightly. Do I want to take it there? Just experiment with this. See what works, what doesn't. Does it work? Does it not? Was the original better? You know, these are very subtle changes that you can make. Again, I quite like this. I quite like the fact that I haven't zoomed in. You can see the background, but it's out of focus, and the focal point is evident there. I might, and I'll do another video on this, taking a certain part and just playing around with the exposures and contrasts and highlights, etc., on that specific area as opposed to the whole piece, just to draw more attention. This is where the fun started for me because I captured the bee, which I have a little bit of an obsession with bees at the moment. So again, I really love the composition here. I like that space that's been left on the right. I like the way that it's composed and that actually those directional lines within the plant lead up. And again, that bee almost again is looking upwards and doing its magic there with the pollen. And again, do I need to make subtle highlights? This is something you can think about and play around with. Subtle is key. So let me just show you a bad example here. I don't want to use the word bad actually. Let's say ineffective. See, for me, that's that adding that clarity, for example, is something that's not needed. However, maybe a subtle, just to highlight those lines there and playing around the vibrancy. But again, I feel that's okay, that's taking it away from how it should naturally look. So I'm just going to pull that back. So again, using those raw camera settings and tools when you're editing helps. Let's just go down. This is my favourite, and this is something I'm going to do quite a bit of work on actually. So again, let's just zoom in. Again, this was the point for me. So I'm going to play around with cropping this, adjusting the highlights and shadows slightly. But I really love the way that I've captured this bee, the composition of the bee, its anatomy, it working, you know, hard, and doing its work with the pollen, and also again those directional lines as well. So this for me is my favourite actually out of this photo shoot. Again, going back and thinking about those that deliberate, the depth of field, the out of focus backgrounds. And here, was it this one? I believe so, yes. So this was a photograph that I took. I quite like the snail. It's out of focus slightly and overexposed. So I made those adjustments to the aperture. In focus, composition slightly better, however, I'll probably crop it slightly from here. And again, everything is a lot more clear. Probably could add a little bit more contrast there. Perhaps a little bit, whoops, sorry, went in the wrong direction there. And to the exposure. So again, subtle differences making, sorry, subtle changes making big differences. Back to the bee. And I quite like here how this is in focus, this is out of focus, so we know what the subject is here. Quite like how the foreground here, the forefront of the photograph is out of focus because my attention is on the midpoint, mid, so not background, mid, forefront, okay? So this is the subject and the focal point. And this is where it's okay to have areas out of focus. Again, I'm justifying my reason why. Once again, these changes that I've made, subtle changes, and again the focal point, you can't see the bee's face but you can see what it's doing, and that for me justifies this photograph. And again, so I hope this has been of some use. I hope this is maybe giving you a bit of an insight as to when you go to select your photographs, think about why you're selecting it. Can you justify your editing? You know, you shouldn't just edit a photograph for the sake of editing it. That's not necessarily going to get you marks. What will get you marks is your ability to recognise and understand why you need to edit it, your ability to justifying your edit, and that photograph should look more effective, better, more visually, aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So these are the things that you have to consider. I hope this has been useful. And thank you very much for watching. See you soon in another video.